Hi, this is Kim Watson. Welcome to a weekly update of the technicals fundamentals for the main currency pairs. Before I actually get on and look at the euro too much, key point tonight, stroke through the Asian session, is we've got the US presidential debates coming through. So we may get a bit more volatility through the markets as we run through this week. There's very little way of significant news this week, and in fact, I'm just going to run through the news. There was there was hardly anything of significance out today. There's little out tomorrow. In the afternoon, we've got the US consumer confidence figures. They don't really generally give a lot of volatility, although they may give a slightly bigger kicker as we're running through a period when there's uncertainty. And then Wednesday, we've got the durable goods. We've got Fed Chair Yellen testifying at 3 p.m. There's some other speakers for the FOMC group. There's Draghi speaking at 3:30 on Wednesday. So there's a few speakers occurring. Thursday, there's barely anything else. Final GDP data coming out. And Friday, I'm just looking at US GDP figures. There's nothing major. Oh, no, nothing major that should be affecting it. Now, of course, there are the oil meetings, the OPEC meetings, etc., that are running through this week. And from what I gather at the moment, there's a lot of hot air and not a lot of action possibly there. But if something comes out of that, we could see obviously any increase or decrease in the price of oil could obviously affect currencies like the Canadian dollar. But I'll come on to that as we run through. So for now, we've got the two most disliked candidates ever, I think, for running for the US presidential election. That's probably going to be sitting there. There's volatility. There may be money. If people get scared, it generally goes to US dollar, yen. The yen benefits from it as well. So these currencies generally get a good reaction to it. So that's what I expect possibly more of as we run through. So far September, it's supposed to be quite a volatile month, and when you look at the weekly bars, well, we're pretty much for the weeks to date in September, there's hardly anything stepping out. There's slightly lower lows, slightly lower highs amongst that. But is today going to be a game changer? Are we going to start seeing a bit more upside on the dailies? Looking at where we are at the moment, it doesn't need a genius to draw some lines on here and say, well, yeah, we've got a very tight wedge going on at the moment. And I think if we can close, we've not quite done it yet, but we can close above that 500 moving average would be a start. But if we can get back and push above that trend line I've drawn there, well, possibly we could be looking at the highs of August and maybe even pushing up to the June highs. So there is a chance that the euro could get a little bit of a wiggle on. In terms of action, and there's no expected action to come from the ECB, for example, between now and probably the end of the year. So there's little to shake or frighten traders off of it. Okay, so euro to me at the moment erring towards a bullish side. A close above the trend line would make me much more bullish. And at the moment, as I say, well, short term, when you look at the shorter term day points of view, we had a bit of a pivot swing coming in on Thursday. Friday never really managed to have the legs. Today we've broken the high of that, and so there is a chance we could, as I say, push on. So at the moment, erring bullish. Looking at cable. No, it needs to come out for the monthly. Ooh, no, I don't want a weekly. 5 minutes. Let's have a look at the weeklies at the moment. And there's only one thing. It looks at like here, and it's looking relatively bearish. And if you're a trader of the euro pound, you'll see almost a reverse sort of picture of this at the moment. In fact, I'm just going to bring it into play. Oops. Let's get the euro pound. You see how, if anything, we're double topping here at the moment. It may hold here, and the pound may catch up a little bit, and we may see some change around this. But certainly with the pound dollar, is looking weak here. We haven't actually got to the bottoms yet. When you look at it on a daily perspective, we're just hanging it around this trend line at the moment, looking pretty bearish what we're seeing here. And whilst the UK's got better data than expected, it's not been really reflected in what we're seeing here. To get really bullish, I'd really need to see this sort of trend line, this trend here broken. At the moment, before I've been bullish, I've been looking for it to get back up and look to get up to the weekly 21. At the moment, I've got to accept it looks bearish. Any break below the lows here, well, we could find support on the previous lows, of course, and I'm sure there'll be some support coming in at those points, but maybe even there may be even some selling coming in following those points as traders close some of their positions and it create a bit more of a spike through there. Okay, dollar yen. Now the dollar yen, it's started to, from a weekly perspective, it's pretty much like the pound in a sense, how it shapes at the moment, heading further south. It's despite all the measures the Bank of Japan have taken and printed 400 trillion yen. They've bought, I think they own something. I'm sure it's 40%. I heard of the Nikkei index. They now bought 40% of it, but they're abandoning its target, their original targets now, and well, I think almost accepting things a little bit, looking at yield instead, but. All I can see happening here is further strengthening, and I think with what's going on in the US, we could see a break here and it push even further lower. So, to me, I'd rather be sitting on the bearish side. I don't trade the dollar yen for quite long periods at a time, but it's looking to me now that it's tradable to the downside on retracement, on decent retracements. It's certainly given us opportunity to trade. Now again, we've got a trend line that's sitting across the lows here, which in itself may give us a target today, tomorrow, may just I'll say today, but through the Asian session, may see a continuation through this, a break at that level. Well, again, so looking for horizontal support levels, but I won't be totally shocked over the next few weeks. I know I'm really looking at the next week, but really looking beyond that, I won't be too shocked with the elections going on, whether we see more strengthening and we run down towards the 90s. In fact, I think it is one of the members of the Bank of Japan that actually almost forecast that it may run down to the 90s. So I'm sure he's probably on sound advice there. Okay, looking at the Aussie dollar. Let's have a look at the weekly picture first, and a very clean weekly picture. I was looking at it a few weeks ago and it sort of broke that level and got back in it. That trend line that was running across there, it's hanging in there on the weekly perspective. It's put a bullish pivot swing on a weekly point of view. If it can break last week's highs, we could be this time pushing up again. We're in this sort of wave formation, a decent wave, retracement wave. Now, if you really want to watch the Aussie dollar, you should be watching iron ore prices, and so long as they're increasing, there's a very high correlation with the Aussie dollar there. So and to a lesser degree the price of oil. So, but iron ore and is the best correlated alternative with the Aussie dollar at the moment. So if you watch their prices and seeing that they're increasing, we may see a push up here. Any carry trades, etc. Also, with slightly better interest rates, you'll see the Aussie dollar, New Zealand dollar may benefit slightly, although the New Zealand dollar's less hopeful, I guess. It's certainly softer, but the Aussie dollar, as I say, at the moment has potential continuation. Looking down on the dailies, again, there's yet another trend line we can draw, and these are pretty key sort of levels. If we can close above these levels, I would expect some continuation, but even at the moment, I would be looking more bullish than bearish on the Aussie dollar at the moment with the recent move that we've seen. Okay, Canadian dollar. Well, what I always have to do really, before I really look at the Canadian dollar too much, is look at oil. And come out, we'll look at the weekly price of oil. Well, it hasn't really done too much. It's been consolidating here within wave formations again. If it breaks the trend here, it could be pushing up. If anything is agreed at all over the next week, anything significant, should I say, is agreed, we could be pushing up to maybe the $55, $60. We've had these previous highs here in May time, around about $60. It could easily get back up to that sort of region, which I'm sure a lot of oil producers are hoping it does. So where we're sitting at the moment, again, we've got the 500 pushing down here. It hasn't yet come and tested it for a long time, in fact. So that in itself, daily 500 may eventually become a bit of a target. And then beyond that, obviously the prior highs will find us resistance on each occasion, but if we can close above that 500, it could be much more bullish for possibly a mid-50s and so on onwards. Okay, looking then at the Canadian dollar, so bullishness in the oil price would suggest bearishness in the US dollar stroke Canadian dollar, but at the moment, today it's sorry, going back to the wrong page. I'll get the right page in a moment. If anything, it's softened this afternoon again and today, and it's been pushing back upwards here at the moment. But a close, if we can get a close below that sort of trend line here in the next, well, maybe there's better opportunities. But if we can get a breakdown again, head down to this 500 MA, if oil holds up, we could start seeing this roll over. It is a mixture because of the slightly strengthening US dollar, but it's giving this a kicker as well. So sort of a bit of a mix what's going on. But if it, as I say, if it can switch over, I'd really like to see the Canadian dollar over the next weeks, maybe coming back south, and it's certainly got some potential. Not one to chase in necessarily every day at the moment, and that daily 200's been sitting there screaming for the price to get up there, and it may just want to do that first. If it can't break this sort of, there's a level there at 132.47-ish. If it can't break that, which again will be the 200, and it rolls over, then I may be looking more on the swing short side of things. It may have some possibilities. A more logical place for a swing short maybe when it's actually turning and there's a sort of a very steep trend line running up here, break that trend line, the 130 area, 130.17, 130, yeah, somewhere in that region may give us the option, but at the moment it's still earning bullish, but potential downside to come. Now, a quick look then. We'll just have a quick look at what's going on with the FTSE, because I do get asked about the FTSE occasionally, and let's have a look at the weeklies. And the weeklies this week's already had a bit of a turnaround, but look at how we were running bullish and a bullish bar last week. A bullish pivot swing, and it's a breaking last week's highs there. Could see us running into the highs at 71.29 sort of area, or 26, wherever the highs were. So there is the potential for it to push up there. Why equities? Well, the thing is, people are so unsure where to put their money. Equities seem to be, and the big funds may be putting their money back into equities, and certainly there's the government buying in the case of the Nikkei, etc., and equities are being bought. So in turn pushing the price up. Is it ballooning? Is it getting overheated? Well, there's always a potential for that, but they at the moment still erring towards the bullish side. Looking at the dailies here, we had the bearish looking bar last Friday, sitting there almost a bearish rami. We've seen this sell off here, but it can hold on to its 15, maybe in the 21 where it's sitting now. If it can push back on there, there is a chance for some further upside. Of course, the US markets, let's have a just quick look at the actually, I've got the S&Ps in here. Yep, I've got the S&Ps, a bit delayed, but it's fine. Look at what's going on. Let's just quickly look at the weeklies, and you see again, it's a few weeks ago it was making new highs. Again, pretty close to a bullish pivot swing, and so a similarish pattern there. At the moment, well, a sell-off here. If those gaps are true, well, there's a chance that they'll be filled at some point. Okay, that's pretty much it for me. It certainly looks like they are true at the moment. So there's a few gaps there to be filled more recently. If, as I say, if it does turn around, there's a trend line across there. I'd be much more bullish if it starts breaking the high of that 22nd September, for example. Okay, that's it for me. I say I've already covered all the news, the fundamentals, the technicals, pretty straightforward in a lot of cases. It's just a case of just waiting for the opportunities. That's it. Have a great week. Bye for now.